So how did the war end for you guys? What was it like?
When we came, after we had lost everything, we just, there was, where were we going to go? We didn't have no, some people, Germans, had little summer cottages where they could go to, but we didn't have it. So we had friends in East Germany, Thüringen, and that's where we went.
That's the name of the town?
Thüringen, that's in East Germany, Thüringen. And in Mühlhausen, the town was Mühlhausen. So we stayed there. Now this is just my mother and I. My sister's already there somewhere on the other end there in Bavaria.
Were you in touch with them at all?
Later on. So we stayed there, and then, people, it was very strange, when you come into the places, the town, even Bavaria, where people didn't even know what was going on. They had their homes, everything was nice and clean and tidy and beautiful, polished. And here come the people who, all dirty, bombed out. So nobody wanted them, and they would look down on them and they say, here comes the bombed out people. Not in my house,
Were the authorities kind of telling these folks, though, that they were supposed to take these refugees in?
Yes, yeah. And then, but there was one thing I have to talk about, is my sister, my mother, my sister, and her baby, and my other sister. So my oldest sister, my youngest sister. So nobody wanted to take them. They needed a place to stay. And they went to the authorities, they give people to stay. And then it was kind of a dramatic experience. I don't know, for some reason. I don't know whether because they were black or what, but anyways, they just didn't, they had a hard time. And then they found then finally there was a professor. He had a big house, and just him and the housekeeper, and he said, I will take them. So that's where they lived.
How long did it take them to find the place?
I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember my sister said they really were, some of the people, they probably said we're here, and then the people would say no, So it was like, not like, it wasn't so much the color, I believe, but people don't know, and especially in South Germany, it's very, very different. They're completely different mentality.
In what way? What would you say? More provincial, or what?
More clannish. If we don't know anything, if we don't know you, if you come from a different town, I don't want you in my house.
Country folk.
Right. I don't know anything about you, and I think it was more or less that than the color. Yeah. Because they made wonderful friends later on, and they really went all out. And my sister lived there for 10 years, my youngest sister.
So what happened to you and your mother?
So we went to Thüringen, and then we stayed there for a while.
With who now?
With friends.
Okay.
These were the people I never met them, but they were Germans. And we stayed there for about couple of months.
Where exactly did you stay in their house?
I slept on the couch. My mother, we slept in the living room. They gave up their living room to us. So they didn't have a very big apartment. I remember that. They just they didn't have a house. Like my sister, they had it. The man gave up his, not the whole house, but he gave them nice.
Do you know what they did for a living?
Oh, the people? I think he was a retired businessman. Yeah, he was. No, he was a tailor. He was a tailor, but he was retired.
And he was just a friend of your mother's? Or?
Yeah, he was just a friend of ours.
He knew her
and
from
his wife.
Hamburg, or
No, they know her. They know them through my mother's friend.
I see.
So so we stayed there, and it wasn't you can imagine you come in and you're all dirty. I had boots on, riding boots. I couldn't get them off
Why?
because my feet were I was in the train for days and days.
So they were swollen?
They were so swollen. They were so swollen. I remember we had this duffel bag and we were on the train to nowhere, and I just went to sleep. And my mother kept calling me. She said, "How can you sleep? How can you sleep?" I said, "I can sleep." I was just so exhausted. And you're dirty. Can you imagine? For weeks and weeks you can't take a bath and nothing. And my boots, when we got there, I don't know
So
how
you were about 18 at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how I got them off.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we stayed there, and then my mother decided. My mother said, if I have to live in a chicken coop, and call it my own. I don't want to live with, being a guest. You are just only how do you say it? Just a guest. They want you, but not really.
Yeah.
Sure. Everything is inconvenient.
Sure.
What they did do the best they could. I mean, they gave up their couch. They gave up, and shared everything with you.
So what happened next?
And then we went back to Hamburg. Hamburg.
Was the bombing still going on, or were we talking about?
No, that was all over. It was all. Everything was. The war was still going on, but people just went back and dug. Some people went back actually to their place where they had lived, and lived in the basement underneath it. They dug themselves out, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's what we.
In your apartment building?
Stone by stone. No, we went to another area, not there.
I see.
Not there. Stone by stone.
So you just dug yourself out a hole?
And out of a hole, but that was another area. It was also an apartment. And
did somebody say, you can live here? Or did you just do it, or what?
I don't even know I don't know whether you had to have a permit. I think people just did it.
So how did you feed yourself through all this?
Oh, well, they always gave ration. And it's a funny thing, when they did the bombing in 1943, all of a sudden, to keep the people, keep the peace, keep them, as insane. I mean, so they gave, they said, oh, you get butter. Butter was very scarce. And all of a sudden, everything was there, You could eat well, and I mean, you had more than you normally have. Yeah. And they just did that to just keep the people,
So they wouldn't rise up?
Right.
So you went back to Hamburg and dug yourself out a hole?
Yeah, and they give you a ration. You got your ration. You always got food. I mean, not much, but you always survived somehow. They always made sure everything was on ration, but you always got that wherever you went.
Well, why don't you tell me about the end of the war? What was that like?
Oh, when the war was over, we lived in the basement then. We had dug out the bin, and the war was still going. We still had a basement.
What kind of news were you getting at that point? I mean, in terms of how things were going?
Oh, I don't know. I never concerned myself with it. Okay. My mother did more than I did.
But I mean, it's obvious that it was going badly for the Germans.
Yeah, and then for the Germans was going very bad. Yeah. But you see, the thing of it, whatever you know how it is. They would lie, and they kept everything quiet.
Propaganda.
And the only thing I remember, you weren't allowed to talk, even to say any opinion. Whatever they would tell you what you see in the newspaper, that was it. That was, and if you try to dispute or say anything against it, then you don't know, somebody's gonna grab you and say,
So what was the last week of the war, let's say, like?
So the last week, then in the meantime I worked in for a pharmaceutical company, and so I remember the war was still going. We were back and forth. They were very large bunkers, And many times we were sitting in the bunker, and the bunker was actually going like this.
Mm.
So, but the last days, it was in May, I think the war was over. I never forget the day when I was on the subway, and next to me was this big, tall SS man. I mean, he was really tall. He had this shiny uniform on, and I was like, "Oh God, it's soon. It's going to be over soon." And then people were saying, so then they already know the Americans were already coming in.
Mm.
They were already in Bavaria, and the British came into North Germany, to Hamburg, and they were all at the border. So the war was just about, coming to an end. And this guy said, "We are going to win, we are going to win the war. It's all talk, it's gossip, and nothing is going to,
Who was he saying this to?
on the train, on the train.
Just preaching to people in general?
Right.
And so...
and the day when the war was over, I was on this. That was the day when the guy was. That was the day when they announced that the war was over. Everything had collapsed, and I just did like, thank God, I'm still alive. After when it was over, when they discovered all the concentration camps, they had it posted, the British posted it all over the place. And I remember people are standing there like, we didn't know that what was going on, and a lot of people didn't.
Mm.
I always hear that they said that the Germans know, but a lot of Germans didn't know.
Mm. Could be they didn't want to know, though, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that could be too. But I believe that. But then I heard something. I don't know where it came from. That they were. I don't know whether my mother told me. There was a train. We used to go out. During the wartime, we would go to the farmer and get potatoes and butter. Exchange for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was. And yeah, it was outside of Hamburg. And somebody said that they heard moaning and groaning.
From where?
In that area. That's where the concentration camp was. And I don't know whether the people know it or they didn't want to say it or something. Something strange was going on there. But that's all I remember.
So you got back together again with your family, your sisters, after the war, or what happened?
Yeah, we did, because my sister and her baby, and my younger sister, they lived in that house with the professor. I forgot now what his name was. They stayed there for quite a while, because they were very comfortable there, and they had no other place. So my brother-in-law was at sea, and he would always go to Bamberg to see his family. Mm. And that went for quite a while. I don't know for how many years. But then my sister came back to Hamburg, and she lived in the bunker, in the basement. Mm. She dug out a basement. Mm. And they came back, and it was easier for my brother-in-law, because he was still at sea, for him to be in Bavaria. But my sister didn't like it, She didn't like it that much anyways, living in South Germany, it's a bit different. But my younger sister stayed. She stayed for a long time.
So then you got to meet some American soldiers, huh?
Oh yeah, later on I met some Americans. We went there, and I met my husband in Bremen.
So what was that like, meeting black Americans?
Yeah, there was in the Americans. So first we saw the Americans in Bavaria.
So how did you date a number of Americans, or how did that come about? I mean, what was that like? What was your like in meeting American blacks?
Oh yeah, the Americans. They were so overjoyed that when they saw blacks, they didn't know that they were blacks in Germany. and we would walk in the street, and they said, oh, and they would stop, and they said, oh my goodness, are there more blacks around? They said, we don't, and then they would, how did you survive, and didn't Hitler kill you? And it was really interesting to see their reactions, and someone would say, oh, they would just laugh, and yeah, and what can I bring you? And they would go to the PX and bring all kinds of stuff, and
You were able to speak English, though.
yeah, right, yeah. I speak, well, not as well, but I had English for a long time.
But I bet you they thought you had a real cute accent.
They were really, it was really for them, they just didn't, they just couldn't believe, that they were blacks in Germany. In France they had seen a lot, I think, yeah.
But you did end up dating at least one soldier.
Yeah, one or two. And then I one day, and we went to, that was because this black lady, Tante Henny, I don't know why we went there. And that's where I met my husband. Somehow he was in the ammunition. He was with the ammunition depot.
I see.
Yeah.
And what was his name and what was his rank?
He was sergeant first class.
Yeah. What was his name?
And William Fordham.
I see.
Yeah.
And so, what did you guys do on a date?
Oh, we just went dancing. They had dancing out in different places.
Would that be
Like
dancing
in
was
the-
supplied by the
Yeah,
armed forces or by
right.
the German people?
No. That was on supplied by the Americans.
USO or something?
Yeah. It was there. But then they also had a place where the Germans. I remember one time I went. That's when I met him the first time. He was going with the blonde girl. And she's very pretty. She was real blonde.
German?
A German girl, yeah, right. I think he always wanted to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
He did. He was very much in love with her. And I have her picture there someplace. And she, I think that's why our marriage never worked out. I think he was really in love with her. But when he told his mother and his sister, they said, if you bring her here, we have no space for her.
And where was here?
To Pennsylvania. See, his sister lived in Pennsylvania. His mother lived in North Carolina. But that's one thing I could never understand, how they, now I'm beginning to understand it, but at that time I couldn't understand why they had so much hatred against white people. I could never understand that. But, as I go now, that it took many, many years for me to realize that. But I'm not a person who, I could never, hate anybody. No matter what race they are and no matter what they have done. But maybe these people, they have really suffered. And my mother-in-law used to tell me how they suffered, and what they had to experience. And my sister-in-law in Pennsylvania, where I stayed, in Chester, Pennsylvania, she was even more so. And she said if he had come, he used to send pictures of this girl. And so she said, she told him, and she said, if you bring her here, I have no room for her.
So you got married and stayed over there, or what?
Yeah, I got married. I met him in Bremerhaven, and then he started to write to me. I went back to Hamburg, and he started to write to me, and then and then he was transferred from Bremen, which was in the northern part of Germany. He went to Bamberg, and that's where he was. That's where he was stationed, and that's where I got married. in Breiten-Güßberg, in a small little village.
And what year would that be then?
That was in 1947.
And
I met him. I met him in 40. No, I met him in 46. I met him in 46, and then I went back to Hamburg, and he started to write to me, and then I went to him. Then I went to Bavaria, and that's when I got married in 1947 in October.
and how long did you stay over there? And you had
Oh, we
one
stayed a year. I had and then my daughter was born, and then right after she was born, we went to the States. The same year. Right. We lived we had a very nice apartment in Breiten-Güßberg. It was right on the road. It was a lovely place. And we fixed it all up, and he was always like, he bought nice furniture, and I even had a maid. He wanted me to have a maid, so I had a girl coming in, and she made lovely curtains for the apartment, and always telling me, and they were blue. She's always telling me I was going to have a boy. So she came and cooked and everything. Wasn't really, but he, in those days, and. So then came time for me to go to the hospital. They kept me in the hospital for 10 days already because I was overweight and I had high blood pressure and everything else. So I stayed in the hospital for 10 days before my daughter was born. And then when she was born, I never realized how I was in the womb all by myself. And it was it wasn't like it was a big room.
like a ward.
Yeah, it was a lot of beds.
Maternity ward.
Yeah.
And you had it all to yourself.
I had it all to myself. Oh. And I didn't know, I didn't realize. I had no idea.
When did you realize?
Until much later. Until much later.
And what did you realize then?
That that there was this separation between blacks, and whites.
In the army.
In the army, right. I knew they were separated. Everywhere you went, the blacks would say, yeah, they are the whites and we are the blacks and blah blah blah. And sometimes they didn't get into too many fights. But
so this
going into the hospital, I didn't. It never dawned on me. And then the Polish girl came in. She was not an American girl, she was Polish. She had a baby and they brought her into the room. Until then I was all by myself.
But she was white?
Yes.
But she was Polish?
But she was Polish.
Was she married to a black soldier or something?
That I don't even remember. Maybe she was.
But this was your first taste of prejudice or segregation?
Yeah, but I didn't realize it, I didn't realize it.
Oh, welcome to America.
Yeah. I don't know, it's very strange. I had lots of experience, even, here in this country. And it's not until much later that I realized, oh, this person was prejudiced. But at the time, when it's, I'm not aware of it. Mm. So, well, maybe my daughter always said maybe that's what made you survive. Mm. Because I never really, I was really not I don't know how you would say it, how you can, I wasn't affected by it. Mm. I just, life goes on, and I always felt like if you don't accept me, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to get mad, I'm not going to get angry, Mm. So maybe it's a good way to be, maybe not, I don't know. So,
well, what was it like when you came here?
Oh, when I came here,
And how did you feel about leaving Germany and everything? And
I wasn't very conscious. I was sad when to leave Germany.
and you came.
But
You had just a daughter when you left.
yeah, I had my daughter. Yeah, but at that time my marriage was not very nice. And my brother-in-law. I remember before we left, my brother-in-law came all the way to Bamberg. He asked me if I was happy, and I didn't answer that question. And he could see on my face that things were like they should. But so we just left it there, and we left for the United States, and so when I got here, we landed in Fort Hamilton. I'm sure you know what Fort Hamilton, huh? In Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we landed.
Mm.
Never forget 1948, and on the 4th of October in 1948, I came to the United States. So that was the beginning. Then from there, we went to we stayed there a couple nights, and then we went to Pennsylvania, where my husband's sister was living. And
were you acceptable to her?
yes, oh yeah, they were very nice to me. They were very nice to me. But she always made sure. She always would tell me. Now she says, if you had been white, she said, you wouldn't be in my house.
Mm.
And she would say that many times,
Mm.
And his mother told me the same thing. See, later on, I stayed with her. I went to North Carolina, where he was, from, and I stayed with her, and I was very well received. And they would always say, "Well, she's very pretty. She's very pretty." And the mother told me the same thing.
Mm.
And yet she got along very well with the white people.
Did she say what her experiences were that led her to feel this?
Well, she said we were treated so bad, and they go back to the slavery. I mean, how during that time. Now I'm learning all this. See, I didn't know that much about the lynching, and she would tell me, that now that I think about it, these things almost went over my head. I just couldn't comprehend when she was telling me that you walk through the neighborhood and here hangs a black man. And she was telling me about all this.
She had seen this stuff.
Yeah. And she said that, she said, don't go, she said, well, I didn't hardly go around, but she said, don't go to the white neighborhood. That was the time when this lynching was still going on in the 40s. I'm just learning this.
So you had one other child?
No, two.
So you have two.
I have
children?
two. Yeah, one is living here now, and the one who's the last one is Bill Fordham. He's named after his father. The one who's
you had three children altogether.
Three, yeah. The one who was a teacher, Waldorf teacher.
So he's back in Germany.
He's back in Germany now.
Your son.
Yeah.
And your daughter is also back in Germany.
She's been living there, yeah. See, I look at people as human beings, and not looking at their colors. But I think even if I had experienced traumatic things like the black people here, I don't think I just could dish it out and have hatred for everybody. I mean, they are good people and bad people, and some people are prejudiced because they don't know any better. They haven't been exposed to blacks, so they don't know anything about him. So I don't know. Maybe that makes me different. Look at things in a different way than other people do.
Well, you've certainly had a unique experience. You seem to have been the one and only in many situations, or certainly one of the few.
Yeah, I think so too. Even
An
my
outsider.
Yeah, even my sisters, you know, and well, I feel, you know, there was a time I never felt comfortable in this country for some reason. It wasn't only because of my marriage. So maybe it could have been that things were different. Um, but for some reason, I never felt comfortable here. And it was in the 70s, I remember, when I was working, I just wanted to go back to Germany so badly. And then, you know, as you know, the more I studied anthroposophy and came into, you know, came to find my own self, I began to realize that there's a reason for it, that I'm here. You know, it's not by chance, and then I really, you know, I coming to terms with it and accepted the fact, and then I just took it from there. But I can never say that I really was happy here, but I know, just felt like I'm here, you know, for a reason, and I brought up 3 children here, and that was my karma. So from then on, it was easier, you know, it was easier. I didn't have this grudge, always saying, oh, why did I have to come here? I wish I wasn't here, you know. And I know it was in the 70s. And because I couldn't really, I had to understand, you know, many things. I guess I had to grow up, I had to get older to really realize. But I wouldn't want to miss this, you know, experience. I still feel I'm very rich. I have, you know, the experience I have had by coming to this country and what I have learned has only, you know, made me a strong person.